Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to Queen Amadai TV presents Beyond the Realm. Okay, so we're going to be talking about this. We're going to be talking about this demon that many people claim to have seen. It wears a hooded black cape. Some have described it as looking like Darth Vader. I saw this thing myself in a home years ago, over a decade ago. Okay? I'm glad you're doing this in the daytime, Queen, so I can catch it live. Oh, thank you, beloved. Okay, so let's get into it. Haunted by a dark cloaked entity. Now, experiences with dark hooded entities seem to be relatively common in the reports of ghost-like beings. Usually, but not always, they appear in the dead of night in the corners of a room. They can be intimidating, foreboding, and downright terrifying. Are they products of the deep recesses of our imaginations where fear and uncertainty lie? Archetypes of what we dread about the unknown? Or are they real entities from some twilight dimension with some nefarious agenda we cannot comprehend? To those who encounter them, like the author of this story that follows, there may be no difference. Whatever things they are, they haunted his consciousness for years, and this is his story. So this black cloaked hooded entity has visited me at least 4 times in my life. I believe it all began after I brought a kid's puzzle game that showed a black cloaked hooded entity, skeleton in a black cloak, that is, with an A symbol on its skull's forehead with the title Alchemist. Now, in September of 1997, when I was a kid, I was watching an episode of Zorro on TV with my mother when Zorro became a black cloaked hero to scare his enemies. He made this sound. That night at 4 a.m., I was awake in my bed when the bedroom door opened and I heard this exact same sound. But I knew the TV was turned off and everyone was asleep. I knew this sounded crazy, but it was real. I stood up on my bed to see outside the door, and I knew that it was a real ghost this time. But it was too dark that I did not see anything, but I knew that something was there. I tried to ignore it and lay down on my bed and closed my eyes to sleep. Suddenly, I became paralyzed and could not move while I could hear a strange sound that sounded like a high-pitched airplane engine, and I could see a pathway image in my head as if I was moving at a very high speed. It was terrifying, or perhaps this entity had the power to control my emotions. I was frightened to the point that I was able to get control of my hands. So I rubbed my eyes very fast to get the image away. But then I became paralyzed again. However, the image and sound were gone, and a new image appeared that showed a tree and a grassland with 2 people who were talking about something. I was not frightened anymore. So I smiled to show the ghost that I was not afraid. So the image disappeared and I was able to open my eyes and move again. It seemed that the ghost had a power over me when I was afraid, but when I was not afraid, then the ghost would not touch or couldn't do much. So then the next incident happened in 1998 when I was playing a video game. At the corner of the reflective frame of the screen of the TV, I could see something moving behind me. It looked like the black cloaked hooded figure with a bit of white skull inside the hood. I looked back, but did not see anything. I was then overcome with a rancid smell as if someone was dead and rotting for days in the bedroom. I investigated to see if it was a dead rat in my bedroom, but I already knew that was impossible since I lived on the 4th floor of an apartment building and I had never seen a rat in the apartments. Then the third appearance, and let me tell you something, when a demon is present, you will smell like a filthy, foul, pungent smell. Smells like dirty mop water, feces, sulfur, rotten eggs, anything that stinks, you name it. That's how it smells. Now, so that was clearly the rancid smell that he was smelling. Now, the third incident happened late at night. I could not sleep because I was hungry. So I went to the kitchen to find something to eat. While I was slicing some sausage, I caught something out of the corner of my eye outside the door of the kitchen. Now, it looked as if there was a transparent black cloaked hooded figure with no legs, no arms, and no face, moving above the air or moving above the floor in the air at the fast speed, while its hood was staring down as if it looked down or if it was looking down while walking. I wasn't very scared, but I knew something was there as it moved from left to right outside the kitchen doorway. The last incident occurred August of 2013, more than 15 years after the first. I am not a kid anymore, and it's been a long time since this black cloaked hooded figure or entity visited me. But I think it still remembers me, and this is why it came back to see me. I could hear the ghost making the same sound, just like the first incident back in 1997 when I was a kid. Now this time, however, I could also feel what I believe to be hands shaking my blanket very fast. And I could hear the sound of the chain rattling as if something, and both of the entity's arms were wrapped around the chain. It's as if the entity was once a prisoner or something and had been executed, which would explain the chain. I could also smell that same rancid smell of dead body like the second incident in 1998. Again, I was able to open my eyes and I wasn't very scared, but I saw something that looked like the transparent black cloaked hooded entity floating in midair with no legs, no arms, and no face. To my surprise, it was much smaller than what I expected. I was expecting to see it standing next to my bed and looking larger than normal human size, but it looked smaller and moved freely in midair. I think this was the first time I was able to see this entity much clearer than before. Now, it seemed to me that this black cloaked hooded ghost or entity that was not as threatening or evil as I expected it to be. I don't know if it was evil or not, but it was not threatening. Yet at the same time, could be frightening though. The lesson I learned is that if you control yourself and prove to show the entity that you are not afraid of it, then the entity cannot do anything to you. But at the same time, however, never ever challenge it or offend it, because perhaps it could also be dangerous if it gets angry. We cannot underestimate these entities. I would not recommend anyone to offend the entity because we might never know its full capability of what it can do to us. From what I have learned, Satanists and many devil worshippers would normally wear this black cloak with a hood during the satanic ritual, while some Christian priests would wear a brown cloak with a hood. I suspect that it could be the ghost of a Satanist who was prosecuted and executed by the church for following Satanism during the medieval times. Also, a friend once told me that near where I live, there was a small hill where Satanists used to perform satanic rituals. So that's likely why he saw what he saw. Sounds crazy, but that hooded thing that he saw, I've seen it too before. I have seen it too before. Now, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about it because there's numerous shadowy figures that people have seen. Now, I'm going to tell you like this. For those of you, I've had plenty of paranormal experiences, like I attract the stuff. I act like it's not there. Absolutely. For those who attract these things, that's usually because you have a sixth sense. Because these entities are attracted to people who have like a sixth sense, because you're in between realms. You're in between the spiritual realm and this realm. So that's how they are attracted to you, because you're actually in their realm, because they come from the spiritual realm. Some of them are malevolent and some of them are benevolent. Okay, with that all being said, if you saw the movie that I did the story on a few weeks ago, The Haunting of the Exorcism of Emily Rose, if you actually saw the movie that they made out of that story of what is her name? Annalise Michelle. In one part of the movie, the priest says that he saw an entity like that, a ghostly figure cloaked in a black hooded cape. And he asked the attorney if she had seen it. She told him she saw it, and she asked, had he seen it? And he says, yes. And he says he's seen it every day since then. So both of them talked about the same entity. And I saw it too. When I saw it, it was standing in a doorway in the dark of night. When I woke up, it was standing like The bedroom, you had to walk down like 3 steps to get into the bedroom. It was standing at the top of the steps in the doorway, looking dead at me. And all you could see were the glowing eyes, and it looked like it had its hands like this. And you could see the eyes and the hood. It looked like a Darth Vader type outfit that it had on. Really spooky. And so I did some research on it back then. That was years ago. And that house was clearly haunted, honey, because I'm not the only one that saw ghosts in that house. Several people that came there also said they saw things. But the when I looked it up, it said that these entities with this black hooded cape, that they're demons. There's some type of demon, I forget the name of them, but that the taller they are, the higher their rank in hell. And they look like Darth Vader. And let's not forget, Darth Vader in the movie Star Wars, that's clearly what he represented. That's why his name was Darth Vader, right? Okay? With that all being said, remember Luke Skywalker always wore white. His name was Luke Skywalker, what they got from the Egyptians, the ancient Cometians, where they talk about how the sun takes 12 steps across the sky. When they say the sky walks, or the sun walks across the sky, that's where they got the name Luke Skywalker. And then Darth Vader, when they were always talking about the force be with you, that was the dark forces that Darth Vader represented. And Luke represented the good ones. Okay? The powers of darkness is what Darth Vader represented, i.e. demons. All right? Now, shadow people are intangible beings. If you've ever caught a glimpse of something moving just outside your field of vision, and what you could have sworn was an empty room, you just might have met one. And if that was all you saw, you're probably lucky. Now, nobody's exactly sure what these mysterious figures are or what they want, but plenty of people have seen them. There are reports, all describe shadowy people as pitch black apparitions that appear intelligent, move unnaturally quickly, and reach or walk through solid objects. Sometimes these apparitions are content to lurk in corners or doorways without doing anything particularly unsettling, and some may not even take notice of humans at all. However, many shadow people are far from benign. Witnesses have recounted sightings accompanied by feelings of overwhelming dread, auras of malice, and even physical attacks. Whether they're ghosts, demons, or just symptoms of distorted sleep, there are a few distinct kinds of shadow people, or there are a few distinct kinds of shadow people with unique characteristics that can tell you what to expect if you meet one. And here are some of the different types. They have the hat shadow man, who watches silently. They say this type of shadowy visitor doesn't appear to mean any harm, but he looks creepy. The hat man is one of the most commonly reported types of shadow person. Witnesses describe him as a faceless, dark man in an overcoat and a wide-brimmed hat who watches silently from doorways. There aren't many accounts of malevolent behavior or attacks attributed to this type of shadow person, but the hat man has been reported to induce feelings of apprehension or the inexplicable knowledge that witnesses haven't seen the last of him. Let me tell you something. My oldest son, saw this thing when he was like 4. I remember he was taking a nap. He was asleep on the living room couch, and I was in my room watching TV, and he woke up and he came and told me, he said, "Mom, I just saw Michael Jackson in the living room." And I said, "What are you talking about? You saw Michael Jackson in the living room?" Well, the reason he thought it was Michael Jackson, because of course he was 4, he didn't know what it was. He never saw the face. He said it was a man wearing a black hat and had on a long black coat. Okay, like something Michael Jackson wore in one of his videos. I think it might have been Smooth Criminal. I can't remember. But anyway, he clearly thought it was Michael Jackson. I told him that was no Michael Jackson. Okay? Now, aggressive shadow people attack sleeping victims. Shadow people may have plenty of ways to terrorize you without becoming violent, but some of them have no qualms about causing physical harm. People have reported being beaten, choked, and even picked up and dropped by aggressive shadow beings in their homes. These beings usually don't look much different from normal shadow people, featureless human-shaped entities, but they harbor some serious ill will. Fortunately, they're also the easiest to scientifically explain, since shadow figures and choking sensations are some of the textbook symptoms of sleep paralysis. Red-eyed specters can sense fear. Now, many shadow people are described as faceless, black silhouetted, but if you run into a red-eyed shadow person, you're in trouble. While they generally don't harm humans physically, red-eyed shadow people are about as menacing as they come. Their only discernible features are the glowing red orbs that appear out from their pitch black faces. According to people who claim to have encountered red-eyed shadow people, their gaze causes unadulterated terror, and the more terrified the victim becomes, the stronger the shadow person will grow. They feed off of fear. Then you have the hooded shadow figures that radiate sheer hate. That's the one I saw. It's just a hooded thing like a Darth Vader. It said this type of shadow person is featureless except for its hooded cloak. Like the Hat Man, this creature isn't known to attack humans directly. It prefers to stand in doorways, whereas where I saw it, in the doorways of my bedroom. It prefers to stand in doorways or bedsides and stare intently. However, while the Hat Man is usually described as more curious than malicious, the cloaked or shadowed figure or hooded figure, they're almost certainly, they're not paying you a friendly visit. That's for sure. And then they have the watchman shadow figures that stare obsessively. Now, these types of shadow people aren't as malevolent as some other kinds, but it's still no fun to feel like you're being watched. They watch humans and they don't care if you like it or not. This shadow person is particularly imposing. It won't attack you, but according to witnesses, there's just something viscerally creepy about the way it lurks around. Then they have the misty black shadow people that move like smoke. Not all shadow people actually look like people. Even regular humanoid shadow beings are reported to move in ways that are too quick and fluid to be natural, but misty shadow people appear as clouds of black smoke. Despite their weird forms, they give off the unmistakable impression that they're an intelligent entity. According to some accounts, these black shadowy masses are attracted to people or places that give off negative emotions. Then we have elusive shadow people who will vanish if they're spotted. Though this type of shadow people are known to stare incessantly, there's one type that prefers to snoop unnoticed. Now, the elusive shadow people prefer to peek around corners and blend in with shadows. If noticed, they will disappear immediately. Like the benevolent shadow people who make their observations more obvious. These elusive shadows don't incite any negative feelings, but some people believe they serve as scouts for more malicious entities. Others, though, feel like they are just playful and curious. I don't think they're playful at all, honey. I've seen those too, beloved. Yeah. Nima Nura says, you've seen those? I've seen those too. And let me tell you something. I woke up 6 o'clock in the morning. This was years ago in this house I used to live in. And I saw two of these elusive shadow figures standing right there by my bed. I popped up and they took off running. They ran into the bathroom, into the walk-in closet. And I went in there and guess what I saw next? A cat. A big, huge black cat, and it disappeared. And I think it was a shapeshifter. I called the paranormal investigators the next day. And speaking of that, here's when they're talking about cats. Shadow animals exist too, but they're tricky to see. It says shadow people normally manifest as inky outlines of humans or shapeless clouds of black mist, but plenty of people have claimed to see shadow animals as well. Shadow animals don't show up as often as shadow people, and they're more difficult to spot because they stay low to the ground and move astonishingly quick. Shadow cats are the most common type of shadow animal, but there have also been alleged encounters with shadow rats, birds, spiders, and even apes. Now, they don't appear to pose any more danger to humans than real animals do. However, some shadow cats, like real cats, aren't afraid to make life difficult for people or animals that they don't like. So anyway, they've got forest shadow people that you might see if you're out in the forest. They've got benevolent shadows that just want company. But hold on, let me tell you the story of this guy, because I believe he saw one of those red-eyed ones when he went out of the house one night. Hooded figure with red eyes. So he says, when I was younger, around 12 years old, my cousins moved in with me due to family issues. Now, they were all younger than me, but there was about 6 of us, including my sister. We decided it would be fun to try the old Bloody Mary legend. Now, I never believed in that stuff, nor did I know much about the paranormal world. So I went into the bathroom by myself and turned off the lights. I said Bloody Mary 5 times and nothing happened. I went to turn the lights on and came face to face with a hooded figure. It was dark, but it looked like it was wearing a cloak and it had glowing red eyes. I jumped back and started screaming. My cousins came rushing in, but the figure disappeared. I told them what I had seen, but no one believed me. A few years later, around the age of 17, I started to experience weird things at night. I would be half asleep and be woken up by a noise. My bed began to shake, and I would often see a man standing at the foot of my bed. He was always wearing a trench coat and a hat. He never spoke, but stood there for a few seconds and would then disappear. Now, this would happen at least once a month. And a few months after it first started, I seen the hooded figure again. I was asleep one night and was awakened by something. I sat up a little bit and turned to my door. The hooded figure stood in my doorway. After looking at it for a minute, it vanished. It was the same figure I had seen in the bathroom. That was the last time I ever saw it. However, my bed still shakes at night, and it has become so frequent that sometimes it happens more than once a night. Another weird thing that happened was when I was 18, I started dating this girl. After a few months of dating her, I noticed she began to act weird. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me about how every night lately she'd wake up and a hooded figure with red eyes would be standing in her doorway. I had never told her about seeing the same thing. I eventually told her. We are broken up now, so I have no idea if she still sees it or not. I don't know if we were somehow connected and that's why we both saw it, or if there is another explanation for it. I have yet to discover the reasons behind my bed shaking at night. Honey, your bed is shaking at night because it's a demon shaking. And the same thing that you saw with the red eyes was a demon too. And at the end of the day, that girl likely got his demon when she came over there and it followed her, attached itself to her. And that's why she saw it too in her doorway. Because I'm quite sure she wasn't seeing it before she started dealing with him. That's why it said she started acting crazy, okay? You can take up other people's demons, honey. That's why you got to be careful who you're messing around with, because they have something called soul ties. And people who have demons and demonic energy, you messing around with them intimately, and those things can get attached to you. All right? But these. Thanks but no thanks on that note. But Ryan says Joe Biden's night gig as Slender Man. I'm so through. That's a good one. Not Slender Man. Sandy says, I stayed in an apartment in Rincon, Georgia. A little after 3, I felt a figure watching me sleep. My eyes shot open, was able to turn to see it, and couldn't move until after I blinked. Nice complex though. Silent D. Man, I would not even say Candyman in the mirror. Okay, Putting these. Who does that? Yep, Queen. That is why I am waiting. No soul ties here. Okay. Oh, Gary, get your ace out the bed. General Overture says, sweet Jesus. Okay. Clearly crazy. I have seen the cloaked entity twice, and each time a family member died. I always thought it was the Grim Reaper. You know what? It was the Grim Reaper. And let me just read you about the Grim Reaper, honey, because yes, I've seen that too. Okay, you can tell the difference because the Grim Reaper has a skeleton face. This cloaked entity just has the glowing eyes, or you won't see anything but the cloak, the hood and the cloak. But the Grim Reaper has a skeleton face. So let's talk about it. Apparitions of the Grim Reaper. I wasn't going to get into this, but I might as well. Now, some individuals describe seeing the Grim Reaper at the foot of their bed or during a near-death experience called an NDE. The figure is described as wearing a hooded cloak, often faceless, but on occasion, a skeletal figure is visible underneath. Okay, so the one without the face could also be the Grim Reaper. Now, sometimes it'll show a skeletal face underneath. Now, the figure often makes individuals feel cold. Undoubtedly, this is a frightening experience. Most report that the figure simply fades away when told to leave. Now, Ralph had an encounter with the Grim Reaper after being admitted to the hospital because of a heart attack. He reportedly suddenly began feeling very cold, below freezing. He says, at the foot of my bed on the right side was a dark gray cloaked stranger. He had no face. And then someone asked, how did you know it was a he? He says, I don't know. I just knew. The other thing I knew was I wasn't bad enough or sick enough to go with him. That's what he said. Now, nurses have also reported seeing the Grim Reaper. Here's an example. Okay, a nurse says, I was running down the hall to my patient's room so I could relieve the nurse in charge. I ran past this room across the central floor nursing station and had run past 5 rooms before it registered what I saw. I did not believe it. I went back down the hall and stopped at the room. I glanced into it. On the bed was a little gray-haired lady dressed in lace, propped up with pillows. Beside the bed stood this tall figure dressed in a monk's robe with his head covered. It looked up at me when I appeared in the door. His face was a skull with tiny red fires for eyes. His hands were skeletal, were patiently folded over each other with dark sleeves. My impression was he was just patiently waiting. That happened in 1997. Now, the first story I told also happened in 1997 about the person who said they wasn't sick enough, even though they just had a heart attack. Now, they say the Grim Reaper is not always reported as a frightening figure. Sometimes he is helpful. A man reported being on his couch one evening watching television. He said he saw the cloaked figure of the Grim Reaper, realizing someone was close to death. So he ran upstairs and found his wife had attempted suicide. He was able to call an ambulance in time to save her life. That happened in 1992. Now, in her book, Dancing Past the Dark, Distressing Near-Death Experiences, the author Nancy Bush describes not only distressing near-death experiences, but also distressing deathbed visions. Based on the information in this book, these Grim Reaper experiences could well be called distressing near-death visits, as described in this course. Now, these experiences are similar to the previously described near-death visits, but felt as distressing. In these cases of distressing near-death visits, the patients perceive a figure as frightening, thus naming it the Grim Reaper. A parallel could be made with a patient who saw a hooded, faceless figure, but instead of being distressed, interpreted the image positively, believing the figure to be Jesus. From the research about distressing experiences, we now believe there are distressing near-death experiences, distressing deathbed visions, and distressing near-death visits. In all 3 cases, the distress can come from the way a person interprets the image and or experience, not necessarily what is said or done. Whew. All sounds nefarious. I don't know who was talking about that. They think that thing was Jesus, honey. I don't think Jesus would show up in the dark of night, dressed all in black with a hood on, scaring the crap out of you, okay? But these. Terry says, I'm calling on the Most High now. Thank you, Queen, for talking and validating this. Yes, on both occasions, and neither had a face. Absolutely, EA. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going outside to the garden and going to pick some sage and bring it inside and burn it right now, says Habaristra. Y'all are too much. Anyway, I'm going to conclude this broadcast. I would like to thank you all for tuning back in once again to Queen Amidala TV Presents Beyond the Realm. I hope you enjoyed the information. Don't forget to tune back in at 6 p.m. on Queen Amidala Shakur TV show and on Authentic Black Goddess TV, because I'm going to be giving you your daily vitamins, and we're going to be talking about the war that has been waged on the new Black media by some of these nefarious haters out here in YouTube streets. All right? All right. So with that all being said, I hope to see you all right Black in the chat. Some of these spirits can help us overthrow white supremacy. I actually believe that they are white supremacy, so I don't know about that, Dara. But maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to try to find out, though. You're welcome, Terry, beloved. Terry says, thank you, Queen. So I hope you all enjoy the rest of the day, and I hope to see you all right Black in the chat at 6 p.m. Peace.